Okay, hello. Hello. Okay, so propositions 21, 22, 23. 20, 21, 22. I'm gonna hustle on this, and then I have another video next for 23, 24, 25. Ballots are being sent today. So today is the day. We get to sort of see how our USPS does. Love them. And so I want to rush these out so that you guys get a firm holding so you can send your ballots back as soon as possible or drop them off, which would be good. So, okay, 20, restricts parole for certain offenses currently considered to be nonviolent, authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors. The second part of that is there is a type of crime that's called a wobbler, honest to God, it's called a wobbler, where it can be charged either as a misdemeanor or a felony. This would move some only misdemeanors into wobblers. It increases DNA collection. Lots of things. For people that have already been convicted, they can now go get their DNA. Anyway, and it changes early parole and release issues. For it are crime victim organizations. So it's hard to sort of tell some of these organizations without spending a tremendous amount of time on what these are. But these are ones that have crime victim in their name. So it's all from Ballotpedia, where I find the individuals. Devin Nunes, some of the Democratic Assembly members that I'd never heard of, just two of them, I don't know where they're from. Orange County Board of Supervisors, who's very politically active. The police unions, and Albertsons grocery store. And so that's who's for it. That's who wants these changes. The folks who are against it, they argue that it's a windfall for prison companies. It will shift low-level crimes to felonies, which will impact harder BIPOC communities. So a couple years ago, there was an initiative on the ballot that talked about making certain things misdemeanors, so kind of based on inflation. So there's sort of like a base value for petty theft, and trying to reassess where petty theft should be, so that if a cell phone gets, we have so much technology, we have so much money in our pockets, it was trying to rejigger what actually is petty and what actually is grand theft, right? So this is kind of an answer to that. The anti-groups is the District Attorney of Contra Costa County, Jerry Brown, the California Democratic Party, all the major unions, the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, and the Public Defenders Association. So it's not super popular with a lot of people. But if you're a fan of Devin Nunes and his cow, then maybe it's for you. But there's a lot of details, or, call my brother, ask him what he thinks. 21, expands local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. This is a repeal of Costa Hawkins. This is a really, really big deal. really, really big deal. Costa Hawkins is the rent control statute for California. There is a new rent control law that passed through the legislature and was signed by the governor. This is something else. And how they work together is a little bit confusing. This would allow local jurisdictions to establish rent control. There would be no rent control on single-family homes if no more than 2 are owned. So if you owned a half dozen and rented out 5, then you'd have rent control. If you lived in one and rented out another one, you would not have rent control. Rent control can reset at 15% at a 15% increase after a new tenant within 3 years, so you kind of stage it up. All of this is limited by the requirement that the landlords make a profit. That's a law that's on the books, is that landlords should need to be allowed to make a profit. The proponents of it say that it keeps families in homes, limits the expense of homelessness, and provides stability for seniors and veterans. There was a study in Los Angeles that said a 5% increase in rent can move 2,000 people onto the street. And we all know in COVID, we're already having a huge homeless crisis. It's just going to get worse because of rent destabilization. So it's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. Catholic Charities does a lot of work. It's very expensive to get people back into their homes. It's much cheaper to keep people in their homes. So just as an aside. The people who supported Dolores Huerta, Kevin De Leon, and the AIDS Foundation. And the AIDS Foundation sponsored a PAC that spent about $23 million on it. The folks against it say it goes too far, loses the better parts of Costa Hawkins, which are the protections for vets, seniors, and the disabled. The folks against it are all the major property owners. So the giant property owners, the big condos, the big, those people. They spent $42 million through 4 separate PACs to say no to this. So that's where the money is. AIDS Foundation, giant property owners. The people for it is the LA Times editorial board. People against it, San Francisco Chronicle editorial board's against it. Bakersfield papers are against it. Central Valley papers are against it. I mean, for the first time, because I started this when I started it, there's also some newspapers are starting to pipe in. Okay, so that's 21. 22, another behemoth. Exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers. This would allow delivery and rideshare companies to keep driver staff as independent contractors. So there's a state law, AB 5, which was signed in a year ago, September, requires that they are employees. There are some court cases, Dynamics, which reads as Dynamax. It's more fun to say it that way, but Dynamics, which kind of threw all independent contractors into orbit in terms of who's an employee and who's an IC. And there's a couple current cases in the court system right now. The pro side is that it allows flexibility. If you're an employee, then the company dictates your hours. You have to be there for a certain number of hours, et cetera, et cetera. So they say it allows for flexibility. The pro endorsements are DoorDash, Lyft, Uber, Postmates, Instacart, the police unions, which surprised me, and some BIPOC organizations. I mean, I think that makes sense. And anybody who uses any of these apps, how often is it that somebody that looks like me is dropping off your food? Not very often. The folks who are against 22 are claiming it's just perpetuating the same unfair working conditions. The anti-endorsements are the big Democrats, excuse me, Biden, Harris, Warren, and the big unions. The Yes on 22 PAC has spent $180 million. $180 million. The No on 22 group has spent $10 million. So clearly it's in DoorDash, Lyft, and Uber, Postmates, and Instacart's interest to get this exemption from this IC employee division. It's not helping out hairdressers, hair salons, nail salons, freelance attorneys, anybody else, just the drivers. My sense on this one is that they have lost in the legislature with AB 5. They have lost in the courts with Dynamics and whatever's currently going through, and so they're hitting the next branch of government, which is y'all. So, $180 million. The other thing that they've done, Lyft is funneling, to at least one, is funneling money to certain city councils, because the cities and counties have a lot of control over what is allowed in their jurisdiction. So Lyft is supporting the person who's running against Kaplan here in Oakland. So they dropped $100,000 into a city council race for the at-large seat. Anyway, I'm getting texts from them. All of a sudden, I'm getting a lot of stuff. That's enough for this one. Again, like I'm telling you, there's a really, really, really big issues on the ballot this time, and so much of it feels like we're just correcting old mistakes. And so much of it is that the world is changing and we need leadership, and we don't have it. And technology has changed, and everything is changed, and we got to get control. And I don't know that this is the proper process for it, but it's what we got. Anyway, I'll see you soon on the next one.